Welcome to the Armed Lutheran Podcast, brought to you by Cook's Holsters.
American-made custom Kydex holsters with a lifetime warranty and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. CooksHolsters.com. I've only said that 1,000 times.
1,000 times. I was wondering if you did that from if there was an audio clip you played, or if you just said that every time.
I say it every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of thought. I wasn't sure.
Pistols, prayer, and potluck. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 354. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week. We're running a little bit late, thanks to an absolutely crazy week at work and a weekend of travel to and from a volleyball tournament with our daughter, which we'll be talking a little more about shortly. So apologies for the late submission, but hey, better late than never, right? Before we get started, I do want to give a big thanks and shout out to the members of the Reformation Gun Club. This week I want to thank William from Duncanville, Texas, Luke from Seymour, Indiana, John Nielson Robert from Bothell, Washington, Mike from Hiram, Georgia, the Disreputable Bartlett Kevin from Fairfax, Missouri, Robert from Elk River, Minnesota, Kenneth from Sugarland, Texas, and Kevin from Marion, Iowa. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you to all of the members of the Reformation Gun Club. Folks, Armed Lutheran Radio is listener-funded, and that means we don't have any advertising, we don't have any sponsors. We are supported by the listeners through their monthly and annual contributions, and you could be a member too. Help support the show, take advantage of all the awesome benefits, access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content, some cool Armed Lutheran swag, invitations to our monthly online hangouts, the next of which is going to be this coming week. The week before, I guess it's the Friday before Holy Week, a week before Good Friday. And come hang out with us and be a part of the fun, and just bask in the glory of Armed Lutheran Radio goodness and just the satisfaction of knowing that you are helping to make all of it possible. Check out the Gun Club, all the tiers and the benefits. It starts as little as $1, it's about $1.26 a week, or a month, I should say, for the lowest tier. So it's like $15.17 per month for the Friends of the Show tier, and then it goes all the way up to $15.17 a month, and with different levels of benefits in between. Go check it all out, armedlutheran.us/gun club, and come join us for our next online hangout. We'd love to have you as a member, and those are always fun. Those get-togethers have become so much fun, just hanging out and getting to know the members a little better, hearing about their lives, and sharing thoughts and ideas and adult beverage suggestions every month. So it's a lot of fun. Come join us. armedlutheran.us/gun club. Before I get to today's comments and content, a couple of things on the book front. The new book, this is a little different, a little departure from the usual. This is a new book that is out called The Fifth Command. I have written another novel, this a fantasy adventure, really aimed this one thanks to a comment or question from one of our listeners, one of the contributors to our book, Duty to Defend, Reverend George Timothy McCall, had asked about my previous fiction novel, An Executioner's Tale. He wanted to know if that book was suitable for kids, which it is definitely not. It is An Executioner's Tale, which was released in the fall last year, is a gothic horror, and it is definitely not kid-friendly. But this one is. This new book that just came out 2 weeks ago, a week ago, a little over a week ago, at the beginning of March, The Fifth Command. It is a fantasy adventure with a little different approach. It is intended as a fun fantasy adventure in a world of kingdoms and castles and knights and elves and dwarves and magic, with a group of four friends who may or may not be very loosely based on the on the contributors of one of your favorite podcasts. And in addition to being a fun kind of adventure, just a fun story, it teaches some important lessons about the importance of faith and friendship and sacrifice and loving your neighbor. It's called The Fifth Command, and it is available now at armedlutheran.us/books. It's available in Kindle format, EPUB. You can download it directly from the website. You can get it from Amazon, both in Kindle format or in paperback format. If you would like a signed copy, signed copies are available on the website as well. There is also a free downloadable PDF reader's guide for parents, and if you want to do a reading group with lots of cool questions, lots of ties to the Bible and to the Small Catechism and other readings. So check that out. It's at armedlutheran.us/books, and it is called The Fifth Command. I hope you will check it out and let me know what you think. Okay, this week's topic is coming to us from the world of competitive shooting and club volleyball. Now, you might call this a deep thoughts with the Armed Lutheran kind of thing, I guess. This is a life lesson thing that really came up again for me over the weekend. As I mentioned earlier, my daughter, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, my daughter is a volleyball player. It's probably the biggest reason that I've not gotten back into competitive shooting since the end of the pandemic, because most of our time and money is going to club volleyball. And so that means lots of weekends, like the one 2 weekends ago, in Grand Prairie, Texas, where we were at a volleyball tournament. And the day before the tournament, my daughter's coach decided to change things up, and he changed them up a lot. He moved players around the court to positions that they were not really familiar with. He made the change Friday evening at practice before the tournament on Saturday. We won't even go into what I think about that, but the results, as you might expect, were kind of disastrous. We're talking about 12 and 13-year-old girls, and we're talking about changing everything that they thought they knew as far as what their responsibilities were and the positions they were playing, changing it the day before a tournament. And so, yeah, predictable results. My daughter moved from playing every minute of every game to rotating out after 3 rotations and not serving at all during the tournament. She got to serve the last set of the tournament on the second day after they decided the whole tournament was pretty much a wash, so they'd go back to the way things were. But the damage had already been done. So she was upset. She was very disappointed. My wife and I were pretty salty about this afterward. My daughter was particularly upset, and that disappointment was evident on the court. She does not have a poker face, and when she gets frustrated, you can tell. Her performance follows suit, and that's not uncommon for kids her age. So on our way to the tournament on the second day, I shared a life lesson that I thought I would share with all of you, because I think it applies to more than just volleyball. I learned this lesson in IDPA. So if we go back to the national championship for IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association, held in Crescent, Texas in 2016. At that point, I had been shooting IDPA for maybe 5 years, and I had never so much as I'd never even sniffed a trophy, except for, well, I did get a first place trophy at the very first sanctioned match that I shot in 2013 in North Carolina. First place stock service pistol novice. I was the best of the least skilled that day. So, yay me. Anyway, but from the fall of 2013 to this point in early summer, I think it was, of 2016, I'd been to a bunch of matches and had spent a lot of time and effort and money going to matches around the country, and had not had a whole lot of success. So I'm there at the national championship with Sergeant Bill and a couple of friends, and was doing an amazing job of sucking. I was terrible. The first stage was a standard stage, kind of a you draw and fire, and then you holster, and then you reposition. You draw and fire and holster, and you reposition, and you draw, and it was awful. I started out the day just completely blowing the first stage. I was so pissed off that I threw my magazines back towards my range bag from my shooting position and almost hit a woman, which was not good. Another life lesson: never throw your gear in anger. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a good idea, especially if you're not looking when you throw them. Fortunately, I did not hit her. So this, as you might guess, is where my daughter gets some of her attitude when it comes to failure on the court. So I was so frustrated that I carried that negativity into the next stage, which sucked. And then the next stage, which sucked. And then the next, and then the next, and then the next. Each stage, all I could think about was how bad the last stage was, and I didn't want to make those mistakes again, and that's all I was thinking about. It got to the point that I was so thoroughly pissed at myself that I was ready to head home. I was ready to call, and I said to Sergeant Bill and to one of my friends, I said, "Hey, I'm done. I'm out of here. It's early enough. I can still call the hotel and cancel my hotel reservation and just go home and enjoy the rest of my weekend instead of doing this." And Sergeant Bill politely reminded me that if I quit at that point in the day, I would only end up being stuck in traffic going home in rush hour. This wasn't a weekend. The national championship is usually starts in the middle of the week and finishes up on the weekend. And this was I can't remember if it was a Thursday or a Friday afternoon. I think it was Friday. And so for those of you who have never been to Dallas, let me tell you, rush hour in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is horrendous. It is so bad, especially where I would have been driving from. It would have meant I probably would have easily spent 4 hours in the car going home, when on a normal day, the trip might have taken me an hour and 20 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. But yeah, if you've never been stuck in rush hour traffic in Dallas, it's a thing to behold. So that one suggestion, that one reminder that, look, you're going to end up stuck in traffic if you leave, was enough to convince me to stay. And I stopped caring. I just shot the match, and I had fun. And the same was true for the second day. I just let each stage go. I was like, hey, this match doesn't matter. I've already botched it. It doesn't, who cares? And you know what? Something interesting happened. It was still absolutely awful. It was still terrible. Quite possibly the worst performance in IDPA National Championship history. But I didn't care. I just had fun. I didn't even care when I hit a non-threat 4 times in the head. The same non-threat. I call it, the way I put it now, I embraced the suck. And the next season in 2017, I ended up winning 7 trophies out of 9 matches that I shot. The best was a second place trophy at the exact same range in Crescent, Texas, at the Texas State Championship. Embrace the suck. And that's the life lesson. It's not going well. Yeah, the last stage, the last match, it wasn't good, but it doesn't matter. There's a new stage ahead. There's a new match ahead. What matters is what's in front of you now. And in the end, even if the match or the game, whatever you're doing, has been a total disaster, in the end, you're still doing something that you love with good friends and awesome people. So embrace the suck. That's what I told my daughter as we headed to day 2 of that tournament last weekend. And, you may not like how things are going. You may not be happy with the position that you're playing. You may not be happy with your performance. You may not be happy with your coach. But embrace the suck. Do that little happy dance that you do on the court. She does this thing. She calls it a Roblox dance. I'm not sure what that means, but it's hilarious. And when she does it, I can tell she's having fun. I said, just do that. Put on a smile. Pay attention to the coach. Nod when he's talking to you. And have fun. Because at the end of the day, no matter what the score is, no matter how many points you lose by or win by, you're playing a game that you love with friends that you love to be around. Just go out and do your best and have fun. Embrace the suck. Deep thoughts with the Armed Lutheran. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my advice to all of you. Maybe it's a sport that you're participating in, or some home project, or a project at work, or some other activity. Embrace the suck. Because life is bigger than whatever you have to slog through at the moment. Find a silver lining. Find the things that you do enjoy about whatever it is you're in the middle of, and make whatever you're doing fun. Embrace the suck. And that, folks, is all I have for you today. If you have any comments or any questions about anything you heard here, please feel free to visit the feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject and maybe how you've dealt with similar situations, and what you think about the strategy of embracing the suck. We'd love to respond to your comments or questions in a future episode. And do join us again next week for another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. It has been a pleasure, as always, being with you, and I thank you so much. If you're still with me today at this point, thank you so much for listening, and tune in again next week for another episode. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.